Well, good evening and welcome. I want to thank you so much for joining me this evening on the 20th of the 3rd, 2023 on In Review 2025, 2023. 2023 went years ago, long time ago. This is 2025 and we're now March 20th. I want to thank you so much for joining me and remember to remember to subscribe. Join me on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. And one of the things which I've been seeing coming up on Facebook is saying something about stars. Send stars to pin your to pin your comments here. So yes, let's say stars. Let's do some stars and also share, like, and subscribe. And thank you so much for coming on tonight. Well, listen, it's been there's always something which is happening each week. There's always something. You've got the Bank of England governor has held the interest rate. Interest rate has been held, didn't go up, which is which keeping things a bit stable. The prime minister hosted a few war the people of the willing minds. Army generals come to the UK to talk about what's going on in Ukraine, Gaza. The peace deal has been in tattered. The art of the deal has gone. And I just want to touch base on something about the Cuban doctors in Jamaica. Cuban doctors because of some visa thing with America. And I keep saying all the while, stop bow down to America, man. Stop bow down to America. We need to stand on our own. When you saw so many things like the prime minister of Trinidad was recently saying, I'm so peed off. I'm so totally peed off, he said. I'm peed off that the visa has been taken away from persons going to the UK from Trinidad. But what he's so peed off more about, he's peed off because you've got to get a visa to go to the UK, to go to your final court of appeal, and also to visit your head of state. Yep. So he's totally peed off because of that. But ladies and gentlemen, let me just start the show, and we take it from there, okay? Well, good evening. Thank you so much for joining. Those who are joining me on Instagram, those who are joining me on TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. And I want to thank you so much for joining. But before I go any further, this is 10 years, the 24th of March will be since I started the Sylbourne show. 10 years since I started doing all these crazy things and creating a platform to be a voice, to be reckoned with. And I believe that it's so important that we have a space which we create so we don't have to keep waiting for the mainstream. Because right now, sometimes you see like the mainstream is in the stream and the mainstream just is a replica and they just keep saying the same thing. And it is so important that we have independence of voices. Independence of voices comes in different way, whereby you got social media, which has created a platform. Social media, which is now deemed to be the original voice, whereby you have mainstream, so-called mainstream, are now looking towards social media for their content, things to be verified. So they get the information from the mainstream. And that is something which is so very important. Okay. Now, as one of the things which I like to do, and for the 10 years, what I'm going to do is to give back to Jamaica. Yeah, give back to Jamaica. People give back to Jamaica in different ways, but I want to give back to them. As I said for weeks, I've been talking about this thing called civics. Talk about responsibility of citizens. Responsibility of persons as to how do you operate during a political sphere, because politics, as you can see, affects every aspect of us. Everywhere we go, there's politics. They were saying one time, even the toothpaste that you take, that you use, according to the Palmolive or whatever, like, which is in there, politics determine these things. I think I got a pamphlet that talks about, as a matter of fact, I didn't throw it away. There's a pamphlet I have that talks about the effect of politics when I was Operation Black Bolt. But this Saturday night on the 22nd, I'm going to be talking about civics. And I'm going to be having with myself, I'm going to have Miss Joanne Simpson. Miss Joanne Simpson is going to join me this, Saturday night. She's a Jamaican who has distinguished herself as an author and publisher of excellence. And she wrote this book, which is called Civics, talking about civics. And we're going to be talking about that. And she's going to be my first guest. She's going to be the first person that I bring on talking about civics, because civics is so very important. And one of the things which is so crucial about this is that I'm planning to have also Lord Simon Woolley. Lord Simon Woolley, as you know, was the chairperson, lead person for Operation Black Vote. Operation Black Vote is a scheme which I also was a part of many years ago, where I shadowed a couple MPs in the UK. I shadowed Peter Bottomley, father of the House. And I also shadowed Dominic Grieve, the former Attorney General, who fell out with the government at the time during the whole aspect of what's going on in the Conservative. So I'm going to look for different persons to come on and to discuss this. So it's going to be a very interesting time. And I tell you what, one of the things which is good about it is that it is leading on to the election in Jamaica. Yes, the election in Jamaica. And I believe that is so important. And leading on also onto the May local government election in the UK as well, which is so important, that persons need to exercise their franchise, not just voting, but exercising their franchise in different ways. Voting is just one aspect of political governance that human beings, people can play a part in. There's many different ways in between that 4 years and that 5 years of election, when they change of government. And they always say this, and this is something which is more important. You change government, who do you get in? You get the government in. You replace the government, what do you get? You get the government in. And that's one of the things which is so very crucial as much as possible. Yep. So listen, one of the interesting things which has been happening is about Ukraine. And the title of the show is Ukraine and Zelensky and Ukraine. And one of the things that you saw the Prime Minister said of UK, because the Prime Minister of UK is so very much hands-on with this whole war, trying to create peace. Some would say they're trying to create war. They say Trump is trying to create peace. And the Europeans and Germany, France, they're trying to create war. And some are saying Putin would breach Ukraine deal if it is not defended, says the PM, right? Russian president, they say Vladimir Putin would breach a peace deal with Ukraine if it is not defended, Sir Keir Starmer said after attending a meeting of senior military leaders in London. The Prime Minister said any agreement to stop the fighting between Russia and Ukraine would only be lasting if there were security arrangements in place. Let's hear what he has to say right here. And let me hear your views in regards to this. And if you're interested in talking about this sort of politics, because I keep saying all the while, there are three things which is in the news every time, no matter what. It's going to be Ukraine, it's going to be the Middle East, and it's going to be the Oval Office. What are the three main things which are in the news? Yep. So let's go. Let's see if we can hear, and let me know if you can hear this. And this is very important. Okay.
I'm really clear in my mind that if there is a deal, and I hope there is, everybody wants a peaceful outcome, a lasting peace, not least the Ukrainians, but that will only be lasting, that will only be peaceful, it will only leave Ukraine secure and sovereign if there is security arrangements in place to ensure that if there's a deal, it is a defended deal. And that's why the work that we're doing here is so important. We know one thing for certain, which is a deal without anything behind it is something that Putin will breach. We know that because it's happened before, and I'm absolutely clear in my mind it will happen again.
It happened before, and it will happen again. That's what the Prime Minister said. Now, what do you think about what's going on in the world in regards to peace? Let's deal with firstly with Ukraine. You know, there's President Trump who is saying that there is going to be a peace deal. There is, and they said they had this awesome talk. They had this beautiful talk today. As Trump said, Trump always said beautiful. But let's hear what the Prime Minister says. The Prime Minister said the UK and its allies were moving from political momentum to military planning. Hi, Michelle, how are you? Which he said had to be done now before a peace deal was agreed. He said it's vitally important we do that work because we know one thing for certain, which is a deal without anything behind it. It is something that Putin will breach. There is no trust for Putin. But I can see when they talk about a 30-day peace deal. A 30-day peace deal. What does a 30-day peace deal does? They said a 30-day peace deal makes one get very recoup whatever they are doing and get back on the track, Jack. Zelensky tell Russia to drop unnecessary demands ahead of peace talks. That's what he said. Zelensky has said Ukraine and US officials will meet for peace talks in Saudi Arabia next Monday after the Kremlin confirmed US-Russia talks there the same day. Ukraine leader said Russian President Putin must stop making unnecessary demands that prolong the war. Who is prolonging the war? No, I'm not prolonging the war, not me. Is Zelensky prolonging the war? Is Putin prolonging the war? Who is the adult in the room trying to stop the war? Is it Trump? Is it the Europeans? Sometimes I was watching Zelensky the other day. I was watching when Rachel Reeves was handing over some billions of pounds over to the president. And Keir Starmer was standing there. Rachel Reeves was sitting there. Rachel Reeves is a chancellor in the UK. And Zelensky was standing there grinning, happy that money's coming in a certain way. And you just wonder about this whole thing, like this is like a game. You wonder sometimes if you pull Zelensky out of the equation and there's somebody else, will it make a difference? I don't know. They say that if Zelensky give over a lot of plot of lands or whatever like that to Russia, then there's more. More is going to be in the pecking order. So Zelensky, Ukraine, Poland, and then different countries. So therefore, there's got to be a stop. That's why they say there's got to be a backstop at the same time as to what is happening. Zelensky is also warned that taking NATO membership for Ukraine off the table, something Putin has said was non-negotiable for peace, would be a big gift to Russia. He also rebuffed claims by the White House that he discussed ceding ownership, of Ukraine's power plant to the U.S. during a call with President Donald Trump. Latest talk came as the U.S. attempt to broker a ceasefire between the two nations after more than 3 years of fighting. After 3 years of bloody fighting, after 3 years of fighting, what does it achieve? That's a big question. What does 3 years of fighting achieve? But at the same time, one cannot roll back. Somebody said, in order to just agree and just try to find a deal and just give off things to Russia is somewhat just rolling over and dying. I mean to say that he will continue the whole process. But somehow there's got to be a deal. Somehow, but I'm sort of a bit pessimistic about Trump. And a lot of people are being pessimistic because Trump is coming in. It's like, I know they said Trump wants to have his day as the getting the Nobel Peace Award or so for creating peace in the Middle East, for creating peace in in Ukraine. But as you can see, with what is happening in the Middle East now, that is actually going haywire. That's not really happening in the Middle East because it said Houthi missile fired at Israel intercepted as fresh airstrikes hit Gaza. Fresh airstrikes hit Gaza. You know. Now, Yemen's rebel Houthi group has said it has fired a missile at Israel, which was intercepted. The ballistic missile was fired towards Ben Gurion Airport near Tel Aviv. The group military spokesman said in a televised statement. Sirens sounded in several areas of Israel where Israel Defense Forces said no injuries have been reported. And the IDF said the missile was stopped before entering Israel. So therefore, things are ramping back up in the Middle East. Is it? Is it things are ramping back up in the Middle East? Hamas fire rocket at Tel Aviv as Israel renews Gaza ground campaign. Houthi missiles fired at Israel intercepted as fresh airstrikes hit Gaza. Netanyahu's called strikes on Gaza only the beginning of as hundreds report killed. It's ramping up, starting all over again, trying to find peace. But at the same time, one would say, then why don't Hamas hand over all the hostages? Some are saying because a lot of them remaining is really possibly in body bags. Yeah. British daughter of Gaza hostage says, burying father incredibly meaningful. An aid worker killed in Israeli airstrike in Gaza charity as well. Israel resumed ground operations in Gaza after deadly strikes. Right? So therefore, nothing really is changing. Trump is not making any big difference. Do you think Trump is making any big difference? I don't think so. As what's his name said, Lamy, the foreign secretary in the UK, there's got to be a two-tier system. All right. And so a lot of these things which are happening now, and we're talking about it, but I say one of the most important thing is this. Whose war is this? Who is it benefiting? I keep saying all the while. I was watching a video, and the video was talking about this song about what this song? Follow Me, and talk about follow me, and they say all the people dancing, a lot of black people, and say, where are black people now when all of this? They are dancing, enjoying themselves, man. They know business about that. That's why they talk about conscription. Conscription, they're still talking about that. Many people believe that that's not being talked about, but conscription is still being talked about. Boots on the ground. They need boots on the ground. Who is it? Going to be you? Who? Your children? My children? Going to be called up? Put boots on the ground in Ukraine? And I tell you what, thank you for, and please like and share those on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and eventually, when you have troops going on the ground in Ukraine, then you're talking about setting the stage for World War. Setting the stage for World War. Because guess what? Boots on the ground. Why is boots on the ground? Why do you have boots on the ground? Why will you put boots on the ground? Because boots on the ground is to secure maybe borders, but it's also there for conflict. That's why you got boots on the ground. So therefore, boots on the ground would have the potential for things to just escalate. UK, Europe versus Russia. That's what it's going to be. And then China comes into play. North Korea comes into play. And all of this. And then just sudden destruction. Yeah. Where you going to go? Look at Jamaica and go Africa or something like that. But I'm just sort of talking about these are some of the things which are happening around the world here that we've got to face in music and dance. And that is why I keep saying this. It is so very important at this time, very important for Caribbean nationals, so very important for African nationals, African nations, to look to see how they can forge partnership and build and strengthen upon each other. I'm going to touch on something a bit later, and this thing is about the Cuban doctors, where America is placing some pressure on the Caribbean to get rid of Cuban doctors. So therefore, hang on a second. But is America going to be helping like the Cuban doctors? Are they going to be sending doctors there? So therefore, it's like a puppet. That is why when I was listening to Gonzalez, the president for St. Vincent, when listening to Mia Mottley, the prime minister for Barbados, is saying, who cares about a US visa? Of course, they got a diplomatic passport, but who cares? Got to stand your ground. And I believe today and this time is an opportune time for pulling together, for looking at the West and say goodbye. Just like that, I don't know if I have it, the Prime Minister Rowley for, I think I'm going to see if I can find it, which for Trinidad, when he said, oh, to hell with British visa. You know what I mean? That is so important. But there's another thing also regarding the whole thing regarding the money which is being going towards Zelensky and Ukraine. They say that money is not British taxpayers' money. That's what they say. It is not British taxpayers' money which is going to Ukraine. No, it's not that. The money going to Ukraine is frozen money, frozen funds from Russia. I keep asking this question. Then if it is frozen funds from Africa, why are you using from Russia? Why are you using frozen funds then? If it is frozen. And they're using that frozen funds to the enemy. That doesn't make sense. I think sometimes they take us for idiots, really. What do you think? Yes, I think they take us for idiots. The way how things, Let me see if I'm going to see if I can find this.
The British government.
I'm going to find this guy here. This Prime Minister of Trinidad. When he's licking out against the UK, I was watching this program here last night. Well, this morning I was watching this Partner Draw TV with Andre Stevens, and he had Mark Golding, the opposition leader, and Mark Golding came on and he showed his renunciation of his British passport. And it seemed like the media didn't take it up. I was wondering why the media didn't take this up. And why is it still out there? And it just shows that how weak and lackluster the media is to a certain extent. That it had to be on a social media platform that it came out. That's very interesting. Yeah. But also the other thing also is that interest rate didn't go up and interest rate did not go down in the UK. That's a good one. The big belly man kept it going. He kept it saying interest rates will go down gradually, says the bank. Interest will go down. Bank of England has warned economic and global trade uncertainty has intensified as it held UK interest rates at 4.5%. U.S. trade tariffs and relations and retaliation to the import taxes from the likes of the EU have created uncertainty for countries, the bank said. Its decision to hold rates was widely expected, but Governor Andrew Bailey said the bank still believed rates were on a gradually declining path. That's some good news for persons with loans, but not good news for persons who are saving. Yeah. The Bank of England governor reiterated it was the bank's job to make sure that inflation stays low and stable. Inflation with measures the rate at which prices rise currently remains above the bank 2% target at 3%. So great news that interest rates has remained and is happening. Now, let me play this video first. Let me play this video first with the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. Because he's mad. He's really peed off. And I'm gonna play Kemi a bit later. Here he is.
Last week, the British government get a VAPS and decide to put all of us on visas.
This means that all Trinidad and Tobago nationals must obtain a visa before travelling to the UK for all visits.
Britain is our friendly Commonwealth nation. They have in this country a high commission with staff. What Britain has done there is not only to damage us and our feelings, but to damage our economy as well. Because London is a gateway to Europe. And worse, the visa is very expensive. But what really rots my gut is that I have to also swallow that the highest court of this land is in London, at the Privy Council. Do you really feel independent? Well, if you all didn't know that we should get out of the Privy Council and get to the Caribbean Court of Justice, this treatment by the British government should let all of you know how they view us. Many of them still believe that we are substandard, we are inferior, and they should treat us as they want to treat us. It is unjust, it is disgraceful that they will put a fee on us and tell us, while you have to come to us to have our lords tell you what is right and wrong, you have to pay for a visa to come and do that. Trinidad and Tobago must complete its independence and get to hell out of the Privy Council.
Well, the Prime Minister has spoken. The Prime Minister of Trinidad. And I've been saying this all a while. Even in Jamaica changes and the constitution reform for Jamaica to be an independent, I say independent, fully independent. Jamaica is not really independent at present because you got to swear allegiance to the King of England. And you're wanting to swear allegiance to the King of England, and you're wanting to remove that, but yet you want to retain the Privy Council. Oh, yes. And that is what the Prime Minister is getting very peed off by. You've got to get a visa to come to England, and yet at the same time, you've got to pay to do that. But if you've got a case, you've got to pay to bring that case to the UK, to the Privy Council. But there's a Caribbean Court of Justice. And this is what is even a fundamental issue or difference with the constitution reform in Jamaica. The constitution reform in Jamaica is wanting to retain the Privy Council. So therefore, Mark Golding, who is the white man in Jamaica, Marky G, is fighting to get rid of the Privy Council and for the Caribbean Court of Justice. Andrew Holness, who is the black man, want to get rid of the king, but want to retain the Privy Council. So they are saying that the Mark Golding is trying to hold off or trying to stop Jamaica to become fully independent by getting rid of the king and have be a republic. But as a result of that, it is really sort of confusing, because really and truly what I understand that the Mark Golding is actually saying is that you can't want to get rid of the king and yet to keep the king's court. You want to get rid of the king, but yet you keep the king's court. That don't make sense. That don't add up. And a lot of scholars agree with that point. But you wonder why. I guess maybe because the prime minister and these guys are part of the Privy Council and they want some of the trappings of so. Because eventually, sometime these guys are gonna leave power and they're gonna want to retain some element, and that is why when it comes on to the whole issue regarding the doctors, I don't know if you have heard about this, but the issue regarding the Cuban doctors, right? There's a height of ideological struggle between East and West, which played out on Jamaican soil between the PNP, backed by Fidel Castro Cuba, and the Jamaican Labour Party, JLP, supported by a conservative United States government, right? And it talks about there are no answers because Cuba tugs at the heartstring for all the good it has done for Jamaica during some of its worst days economically. A great sacrifice to the Cuban people. In addition to the nurses and doctors, the country has a popular eye care program, has built several schools like GC Foster College, Osamarte High, and provides scholarships, primarily in medicine. Internationally, since its 1959 revolution, Cuba has dispatched medics to countries around the world treating disease that wreaks havoc in poor countries, from cholera in Haiti to Ebola in West Africa, Reuters news agency reminds in a story. But why is Jamaica so silent on this? Mia Mottley, they said the one who has more balls. She has more balls, they said. Mia Mottley, the Prime Minister of Barbados, has come out and stand the ground and say, listen, I'm ready to give up my visa to the US. Gonzalez and all of them coming out and saying, ready to give up their visa. And it is so unfortunate. And I tell you why it's so unfortunate, because this is what I've been saying, that at a time like this, when America is operating a certain way, it is so important that regions stick together. Because America is more focused on itself. That's what America is focusing on. They're focusing on their base. So the Caribbean, Africa, need to build their base. So the question, and Al Jazeera said, why are Caribbean leaders fighting Trump to keep you Cuban doctors, right? Cuban medical missions provide crucial support to several Caribbean healthcare systems, especially in times of crisis, right? What's your take on this? What do you say? Caribbean leaders have it back at a threat issued by the US government to cancel visas for anyone working with or supporting Cuban medical facilities, citing allegations of forced labor and claiming these missions enrich the Cuban regime. Cuban medical missions, which provide doctors, nurses, and other medical staff as well as medical facilities, are critical to health care systems in the Caribbean. So the big question is, why is the US government taking aim at Cuba's medical program? Why? Do you know why? Why is Cuba being focused on? Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Please share. Thank you for coming on. The targeting of Cuban medical mission is not new for US President Donald Trump administration. During his first term as president of US from 2017 to 2021, his administration imposed visa sanctions on Cuba's global medical program. His government claimed these missions amounted to human trafficking because it said Cuban doctors are reportedly underpaid. Yeah. This time around, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, whose background is Cuban, has announced restrictions on visas for government officials in Cuba and anyone else globally that the U.S. deem to be complicit with Cuba's foreign medical program. The State Department said the restrictions would extend to current and former officials as well as the immediate family of such persons. All right. Now the Caribbean is leaking out. And right now there's the budget debate which is going on in Jamaica, the Prime Minister, and don't know how true this is, but they're saying there are 18 containers, don't know how true this is, on the wharf in Jamaica, which is waiting to take the Cuban doctors and their things away. I think this is very concerning. And that is why I keep saying all the while that Jamaica, especially Jamaica, PNP and JLP need to formulate and have a key vision for Jamaica. So therefore, if JLP lose, then the PNP not going to tear away all the 5 years and the plans which have been done. If JLP win again or whatever, they don't tear away the plans, but they join together. And something of this nature, just like right now in the UK, there's a join-up policy with the UK when it comes on to Ukraine. They all said the opposition leader do not really hit out against the Prime Minister when they're talking about Ukraine. Boris Johnson stood with Ukraine. Rishi Sunak stood with Ukraine. Kemi Badenoch stand with Ukraine. The Prime Minister Keir Starmer stand with Ukraine. You can see there's a joint-up policy there, a joint-up decision. So therefore, they're not at odds. But something like this with the Cuban issue, the government of Jamaica, along with the Prime Minister, should be working together on that case and standing the ground of it. That's what I think. I don't know what you think about that, but that's something there. And I think it's very international. And I think it falls and it forms a part of government policies. It forms a part of having strong leaders, persons of substance. There were the days when you had the Michael Manley, those persons who stood their ground and you could know where they stand, whether you like them or not. And Margaret Thatcher, whether you like her or not. You understand? Reagan, Kissinger, and all these different persons. Those period, we got strong diplomatic persons with sound background, which is sometimes a bit lacking these days. And we've got to bring it back. And that's one of the reasons why I want to talk about civics as well. Talk about the way how the citizens can play a part, play a role in effecting good governance. Yep, that's very important. But now, as usual, let me wrap up with Kemi. Yeah, Kemi Badenoch, the opposition leader, been monitoring her, been following it. And she's making some wave, as usual. People may disagree or what, but I believe as time goes by and as she gets stronger, she'll become, who knows, as she said today, maybe you need to switch sides to Keir Starmer. Let's watch Kemi.
Mr. Speaker, the Chancellor claimed that her budget was a once-in-a-Parliament reset. So why are we having an emergency budget next week?
Mr. Speaker, we have delivered record investment into this country, had 3 interest rates cut in a row, and wages are going up faster than prices, which are a massive cost of living boost. That's after only 8 months, after 14 years of absolute failure. What do? Interest rates 11%. Massive 22 million black hole in the economy. They crashed the economy. We're rebuilding Britain.
Mr. Speaker, he knows why we're having an emergency budget, because since the last one, since the Chancellor delivered her budget in October, growth is down, borrowing is up, and she has destroyed business confidence. Does the Prime Minister now regret raising taxes on business?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the ABR will present their numbers. There will be a spring statement next week. But, Mr. Speaker, she still hasn't. We've got record investment into this country. Interest rates have been cut, and she talks about national insurance. We had to fill the 22 billion black hole that they left. We've invested in the NHS, in schools and public services. We're pressing on with planning, with infrastructure and regulation. But I understand the Leader of the Opposition is straight talking, so perhaps she can help us with this. Is she going to reverse the next increase? If not, what's the point? If so, what other taxes is she raising to fill the hole? One way or the other.
You're in government.
Speaker, the only black hole is the one that he is digging. Yeah. He's shown absolutely no regret, but everybody knows the Chancellor has made a mistake. Yes. That is why they're having an emergency budget. Yes. Later today, Conservatives will vote to exempt hospices, pharmacies and care providers from her national insurance rise. Will he, at the very least, support exempting these vulnerable services from his jobs tax?
Prime Minister.
I noticed she didn't say they're going to reverse the national insurance rises. It's exactly what she wants all the benefits, but they can't say how they're going to pay them. She carps from the sideline, but can't make her mind up whether she supports or doesn't support national insurance rises. We've made provision for hospices, we've made provisions for charities, but we had to secure the economy. We had to fill the £22 billion black hole that they disgracefully left.
Mr. Speaker, he hasn't made these provisions. He keeps talking about budget benefits. Unemployment is not a benefit. Businesses closing are not benefits. I asked him whether he would exempt hospices, even children's hospices, from the jobs tax. He did not answer that question. His MPs know that this could affect end-of-life care. So I will ask the same question again. Will he exempt hospices from paying his jobs tax?
Question is, does the Prime Minister answer questions? Does the Prime Minister of the UK answer questions? Well, Kemi keep going back at him and keep going back at him and keep going back at him. And of course, the Prime Minister will always make these snide remarks, but that is the game of politics. And that's what Punch and Judy is like in the House of Commons. So let's keep going.
Mr. Speaker, we've already invested £100 million for adult and children's hospices, an additional £26 million in funding for the Children's Hospices grant, but we can't get away with what we were doing in that budget, the root cause, which was fixing the economy they left so badly damaged, a £22 billion black hole. Perhaps you start the next question with an apology.
Mr. Speaker, I remember when he made... They want me to answer questions, then we can swap sides.
Well, she just said a while ago, if you want me to answer questions, you can swap sides. I can see the comment on TikTok says she's unelectable. That's why she's there. She's unelectable. That's why she's there. So you're saying that the Conservative made a mistake. If Conservative were serious, I think they would have chosen cleverly. So you believe that the persons that chose her didn't want the Conservative to move forward? Is that what you're alluding to, a person on TikTok? But let's hear what Kemi says further. I know there's a rumbling which is going on to say that time is going. And I saw some discussions talking about Boris Johnson wanting to come back. Would you be happy with Boris Johnson coming back? Would you guys be happy with Boris Johnson coming back after everything which has happened? Anyway, let's keep listening to Kemi.
I remember when he made that announcement. He's forgotten because the money he's referring to for hospices is for buildings. It is not for the salaries hit by the jobs tax. As St. Helena Hospice in Colchester said, we cannot use this funding for salaries, which is where we need urgent help. Why is the Prime Minister not listening to hospices?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I've already set out the position in relation to hospices. She says that she wants to swap sides. I mean, heaven forbid.
I knew he was going to do that.
After 14 years
I knew he was going to do that.
breaking everything, we're getting on with the job of fixing it, and all she can do is cart from the sidelines with absolutely no policy.
I knew he was going to do that.
Mr. Speaker, winter fuel payments have been snatched.
I think he got
The
it
jobs
right.
tax is hammering everyone from business to charities. The Chancellor promised a once-in-a-Parliament budget that she would not come back for more. And in that budget, she said there will be no extension of the freeze in income tax thresholds. Ahead of the emergency budget, will he repeat? Mr. Speaker, ahead of the emergency budget, will he repeat the commitment that she made?
Prime Minister.
Well, that was it for Kemi and Starmer this week. I mean, there's more still. She had launched the campaign for the start of the election, May the 1st, in May, local government election. Finally, Reform did his launch, and he showed a lot of councillors for Reform, councillors who have jumped ship as well. What do you think about Reform? Do you think Reform stands a good ground? What do you think? Or do you think Reform is a wasted vote? There are 5 MPs, and there's a possibility that one could be out and become independent. Recent issue with one of their MPs. But there are 5 MPs now, and I believe they got 200 and something, I think over 200,000 or so members. Many people say it's a company. But is Reform a strong voice to be reckoned with? Is Nigel a strong voice to be reckoned with? Especially that they're in bed with Trump. And especially that they are more siding with Putin. And especially when you look at the faces of Ukraine, of Reform, they look the same way. And do you think that the diverse aspect of the UK as the UK is developing, will the UK accept Reform? And one of the things that Reform talks a lot about is about immigration. Can immigration and will immigration ever be fixed? Yeah, that's a big question. And that is why I believe, and that's why I keep saying, it's very important that everyone get involved on the political thing, on the political frame, to understand, get your voice inside there, to say something and to be a part of the solution. Not just waiting for person to do it, but you also need to be a part of it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for tonight, for joining me on In Review as we look at some of the top news of the week. And as I said, this Saturday night on the 22nd, which is 10 years of my show, I'll be having Miss Joanna Simpson. She is the author of the book called Civics for Jamaica. Jamaican was distinguished herself as author and publisher of excellence, right? And she's here to speak on her latest book, and she's going to be talking on this, New Vision Civics, a Ministry of Education endorsed textbook that has also been embraced by senior educators and Jamaicans alike. Her other signature, Legacy books, have also been recommended by the Ministry of Education as reference text for the education system. Civics, as we talk about, is a very key area in Jamaica. Civics is something which is so very, what should I say, important. You say, what is the study of civics? Study of civics known as civic education, citizen education, citizenship is a comprehensive field that prepares individuals to be active, informed, and responsible members of society. It encompasses several key aspects, and that is so very important. And leading on to Jamaica now, where you got an election which is pending, it is high time and very good time that a topic like civic is discussed and a topic like civic is mentioned. Very important. So therefore, this Saturday night at 10 p.m. UK time, 5 p.m. Jamaica time, I'll be launching the first series of Civics. Civics for you. And that's my way of giving back to Jamaica. And during the course of our time, I'll be having also Lord Simon Woolley from the UK here, and different persons. Hoping to have Professor Rosalie Hamilton, hoping to have Miss Danielle Archer, hoping to have Miss Gina Calder, also hoping to have Mr. Matunda McCullough, and different persons picking different areas and to talk about civics important. It's very important that we're empowered, that we're educated as to the responsibility of each other as we develop our nation, wherever we are, in the diaspora, UK, USA, Canada, and also at home. So very important, ladies and gentlemen. It has never been very important as now. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining. And for those who are joining me on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, thank you very much. Remember to like and subscribe and to share. And remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel, Sylbourne TV. Let's subscribe to the YouTube channel, Sylbourne TV, and we take it from there. Have a good night, and may God bless you. Peace out. Until next time. Thank you. Hey, respect.